Aloha, folks. Welcome back. Don't mind me. I'm just on island time right now. I gotta be honest with you. I'm in a terrific mood right now. I mean, just look at my smile. That's right, everyone. It's my third favorite season. Summer. The sun is shining. It's nice and warm out. School's out, which would be a bigger deal if I wasn't a grown man. The only thing that could make this day better is if I went inside and played video games. Summertime, the hottest, warmest, hottest time of the year. I may have an increasingly concerning body fat percentage that makes me sweat during the dead of winter, but I still think there's a lot to love about the summer. And you know what lots of people like to do during the time of year when going outside isn't soul-crushingly depressing? Play sports. Nothing like kicking around the old soccer ball or throwing around the old pigskin, right? I mean, it's not like you can watch sports since they're all off-season. But you know what's much easier than being a professional athlete? Pretending to be a professional athlete. Years of practice, dedication, working out. What are you, stupid? Why bother putting in the effort, time, money into actually playing basketball when you can simply go down to the local GameStop and pick up a copy of the latest 2K? It'll set you back $90, but shit, man, that beats putting actual effort into something, right? Now look, I'm not gonna pretend that I'm a fan of sports games, but there is one that I have a great fondness for, and that is Wii Sports. You know the drill. I made an episode about Wii Sports last year, and it was a lot of fun. Nintendo's launch title for the Wii that intended to show off how the new motion controls worked. It ended up being a phenomenon and led to the Wii becoming one of the best-selling video game consoles of all time. It spawned an entire series of Wii games. Wii Play, Wii Fit, Wii Party, Wii Music, Wii Studying for the SATs. I can't find a picture of that one for some reason, but trust me, it's out there. And of course, a full-on sequel to Wii Sports Resort. As a big Nintendo kid back in the day, I obviously convinced my mom to buy me Wii Sports Resort not long after it came out, so I have almost as long a history with this game as I do with the original Wii Sports. So in the spirit of tradition, what do you say that we take a look at Wii Sports Resort? So pack your bags, put on your sunscreen, and take your traveler's diarrhea medication, but don't worry about absorbing any of that pesky culture, because we're going to a tropical resort, so you're going to be surrounded by mostly other white people. Wii Sports Resort was released in 2009 for the Wii. Obviously, it's the sequel to Wii Sports, but much like how the original Wii Sports used the generally understood concept of sports to ease the world into motion controls, Wii Sports Resort also had an ulterior motive, so to speak, although one that is vastly more stupid in my opinion. You see, Wii Sports Resort came packed in with and required the Wii Motion Plus accessory, a stupid fucking piece of plastic that you plug into the bottom of your Wiimote and then something happens. Look, man, I'm not a computer hardware engineer or whatever, so I don't know. Maybe the Wii Motion Plus did actually improve the accuracy of the Wiimote, but going based totally on my own anecdotal experience, I never noticed any difference. Skyward Sword requires the Wii Motion Plus, and in my experience, the motion controls in that game mess up and glitch out more often than the majority of Wii games. Although it's possible that there were, other factors going into that. Thankfully, a few years later, Nintendo just started making Wiimotes with Motion Plus already in them, which is good because I have no idea where any of my Wii Motion Pluses are. But anyway, Wii Sports Resort takes place on Woohoo Island, a tropical island in, Hawaii, I guess. Or I guess it would be more appropriate to say Hawaii Wii. But anyway, enough preamble, alright? Let's get this vacation on the road, baby. If your eyes function properly, you'll probably notice that Wii Sports Resort has quite a few more games than the original Wii Sports. 3 times the games. -3, in fact. And also 2 of them were in the original Wii Sports, so twice the games, I guess. Another difference between original and Resort is that each game has a few modes within them. To be fair, Wii Sports did have mini-games, but they were separated into the training menus, whereas Resort sort of puts them on the same level as the quote-unquote main game mode. Similarly to Wii Sports, Resort has a skill level system that goes up and down based on how you perform. However, Wii Sports Resort also has stamps, which kind of work like achievements. You get them for doing stuff like hitting a buzzer beater in basketball, hitting a hole-in-one in golf, etc. The first game we got is sword play. Swordplay has 3 game modes: Duel, Speed Slice, and Showdown. Duel is a 1v1 game mode that has you on a giant platform like 20 feet above the ocean. The goal is to knock your opponent off the platform and into the drink. All you can do is swing to attack, and hold B to block, and if you make contact with your opponent's sword while blocking, you'll lose your balance, opening you up for some hits. Similarly to the original game, you can play against a friend or in single player, If you're flying solo, you play against computer-controlled characters who gradually increase in skill level. Overall, this is pretty fun, perhaps a little repetitive, but it has the same vibe as boxing did in the first game. Next up is Speed Slice, which is basically the same as Duel, but you get actual swords. No, I'm just kidding. It's another 1v1 game mode where classic Nintendo character Matt throws various items and you have to slice them in half quicker than your opponent. This one's pretty fun as well. My only real issue is that if your sword isn't facing the right direction when the thing you're supposed to cut drops, you're kinda just shit out of luck, you know what I'm saying? But then again, maybe I'm just whining. I have been known to do that. The final mode in Swordplay is Showdown, and let me tell you, this shit is pretty crazy. This is a full-ass campaign mode where you walk around different parts of Woohoo Island fighting waves of enemies followed by a boss. I gotta say, this shit is awesome. I loved it as a kid, and it's just as fun now as I remember it being. My only real criticism is that I think it could have utilized the nunchuck to control your character. There are a lot of parts where you're just sitting there waiting for your Mii to catch up to the horde of oncoming Miis, and it kinda just feels like it would be better if I could just move on my own. And I mean, yeah, sure, it's because you're supposed to hold the Wiimote with both hands, but like, shut the fuck up, Nintendo. Nobody's doing that. Next up, we got Wakeboarding, which only has one game mode. Wakeboarding, for those of you who don't know, is some rich people shit that involves a person on a surfboard being towed behind a motorboat. I guess going to a tropical resort in general is kind of some rich people shit. Wakeboarding is pretty fun. You hold the Wiimote sideways as if you're actually holding on to the wakeboarding handle thing. The goal is basically to lean back and forth into the waves that the boat has created and pull off some gnarly tricks in the air. I mean, the tricks are done automatically. The actual gameplay comes down to angling the Wiimote so that your Mii lands back on the water correctly. Like I said, it's pretty fun, although once you've played it once, you basically have the whole experience. There are other difficulties, but all that's really different is that there are more obstacles in the way. Now before we go on, I got some business to attend to. Every time I've ever reviewed a game that you could consider a minigame collection, I've ranked the games from best to worst. And obviously I'm going to be doing that this time. But I'm not going to rank every individual game because there's too many. That would just be nonsense. Nobody wants to see that. So with that said, wakeboarding is easily the worst game we've looked at so far. Wakeboarding, more like can't stay awake boarding. That's kind of harsh. It is pretty fun. It's just not as good as the other ones. Next up, we got Frisbee, which is apparently a registered trademark. Hell yeah, now I get to worry about being sued not only by Nintendo, but also Frisbee. Anyway, Frisbee fucking sucks. You got two game modes, Frisbee Dog and Frisbee Golf. Frisbee Dog is exactly what it sounds like. You're throwing a virtual disc for a virtual dog, and you want to get it as close to the center of the big target that pops up on the ground as possible. And then on the other hand, you got the national sport of white people, Frisbee Golf, which, again, is exactly what it sounds like. You want to get the Frisbee to the goal in the fewest throws possible. And let me tell you, that's easier said than done. I don't know what it is, but this just doesn't feel right. I'm not sure how Nintendo managed to perfectly emulate the feel of bowling, but they fucked up throwing a Frisbee so bad. Like, it's basically the same thing, but horizontally, right? Why does the Frisbee never fucking go where I want it to? Maybe I'm just bad or my controller sucks or something, but I don't know, man. Wii Sports Resort Frisbee just feels frustrating and unresponsive. I will give credit where credit is due. I love the Wii Dog. I absentmindedly, without thinking, said good boy a couple of times when he caught the Frisbee, so at the very least it has that going for it. Overall, I'd put it below wakeboarding. This shit sucks. Coming at you from the opposite side of the spectrum is Archery, a game that I never played as a kid. And I can honestly say now that I was a stupid asshole for not playing this game as a kid, because Archery is a lot of fun. It uses the nunchuck, and you're meant to hold the Z button on the nunchuck and get your crosshair as close to the center as you can before releasing Z to shoot your shot. You just go through a bunch of levels aiming at targets that progressively get more difficult to hit. It's actually really comprehensive. There's wind, obstacles, sometimes the target is moving. The kind of weird thing is that the game wants you to put the Wiimote in your non-dominant hand, which I guess makes sense. In real life Archery, you pull back the bow with your dominant hand. But still, I switched it around and put the Wiimote in my right hand, and it felt a lot more natural, honestly. All that aside though, Archery is a lot of fun. It's one of those rare Wii games where it actually feels accurate and fun to stand up and actually point the Wiimote at the screen as if you're actually archering, I guess. I would say that it's not quite as fun as Swordplay just because of how much replay value Swordplay has, but it's definitely a close second. Next up is basketball. Hell yeah. We're all familiar with basketball, right? Throw ball at hoop, you get ball in hoop, you get 2 points. If you throw ball and get in hoop from outside this circle, you get 3 points. That's the basic rules. Wii Sports Resort Basketball comes in 2 flavors, 3-point contest and pickup game. 3-point contest is exactly what it sounds like. It's a one player at a time mode where you have 1 minute to get as many 3-pointers as you can. Pickup game is an actual 3-on-3 half-court game of basketball against computer players. It works pretty much exactly how you'd expect Wii Sports Basketball to work. You can dribble, pass the ball, fall on your face trying to steal the ball, miss 3-pointers, 3-pointers, it's like I'm back in elementary school. If you get up close to the net and go for a shot, you'll do a slam dunk, which is always fun. Overall, basketball fucking rules. It's super competitive and fun, and the motion controls are so simple and yet responsive and accurate. It's a blast. Basketball is top in the ranking, fellas. It's happening. The next game we got is table tennis. I guess Nintendo was willing to pay for the trademark for Frisbee, but couldn't be f***ed to do the same for ping pong. In my Wii Sports episode, I made a point of acknowledging my general lack of knowledge about tennis, so you're probably thinking that I'm kind of in the same boat with table tennis. However, if you thought that, you would be sorely mistaken, because table tennis is actually the most awesome and macho sport of them all. Seriously, if you don't believe me, look up Olympic table tennis. There's no athlete who matches the intensity of a professional ping ponger. My blood pressure is spiking just thinking about it. Anyway, table tennis more or less operates the same way as regular tennis, with a few notable differences. For one thing, everything is quite a lot smaller. Except for the players, of course. They're normal size. Also, unlike regular tennis, in table tennis you have to let the ball bounce on your side before you hit it. Other than that, it's mostly the same. You score a point either when your opponent fails to hit the ball back and it's bounced once, or when they hit it and it lands off the table, which is out of bounds. The first player to 6 points wins, and you have to win by 2 points. So if the score is tied at 5 apiece, a score of 6-5 won't win you the game. It would have to be 7-5. Or, 13-11, just as an example. In terms of gameplay, I mean, it's basically the same as Wii Sports Tennis. You swing the remote, it's not rocket science. That said though, it is a lot of fun. I'd put it above archery just because it's so much fun in multiplayer. There's also a return contest mode, but it's basically just the training mode where you try and hit as many balls back as possible, so whatever, moving on. Next up is golf, the first game making its return from the original Wii Sports. And because of that, it's not really all that much different this time around. Although it is a little bit more comprehensive. Like there's a curve to your shot. The little bar on the left side of your screen curves based on how you hit the ball. Also this time you actually have 18 holes, although 9 of them are taken directly from the original game, which I feel like I should be upset about, but honestly I just don't care that much. Overall, golf is fun. I'd put it below archery just because it's basically exactly the same as last time. Next up we got bowling, the other sport making its return from the original game. And again, it's more or less exactly the same. Although you do get a fun Hawaiian shirt that matches your favorite color, which is a nice little detail. To be fair, it is slightly more comprehensive. For starters, you can zoom in to get a better idea of where your trajectory is at. Also, one thing that I think is kind of funny is that they start you pointed at the second to right arrow. I guess moving over and pointing to the middle was such a commonly used strategy that Nintendo just said, F it, we know you're gonna move over there. You may as well just skip the middle, man. And of course, you can still do this. Bowling also has 2 other modes, 100-pin game, wherein you have to try and knock down all 100 pins, and spin control, where you have to avoid barriers by curving your throw, both of which were in the original Wii Sports as training minigames. Overall, I mean, obviously, bowling is a ton of fun. It was fun in Wii Sports, it's just as fun in Wii Sports Resort. It's going above table tennis and below swordplay, my friends. Next up, you guessed it, it's power cruising. Power cruising is similar to wakeboarding, except you need a nunchuck and a boat operator's license to play it. Thankfully, I have both. You hold the Wiimote and nunchuck sort of diagonally in front of you, and the goal of the game is to get through all the gates as quickly as possible. And man, maybe I was experiencing technical difficulties or I was doing it wrong or something, but if that's not the case, power cruising is straight up garbage. Like, it just doesn't work. Your Mii leans way too hard into turns, and by default, they lean one way or another. It's borderline impossible to get your character to just go in a straight line. You end up driving around in circles like a dumbass. I don't know, man. I feel bad being so hard on this game because it honestly feels like my controllers were just f***ed up. Like, I have a hard time believing that Nintendo would put this on here in this state. But you know what? F*** it. Bottom of the list. If you take issue with that, I don't know what to tell you, man. It's Wii Sports Resort. Take it easy. Not everything needs to be so serious all the time. The next game we got going is canoeing, which of course takes place in a kayak. It works the way you would expect it to. You hold the Wiimote in 2 hands and paddle it back and forth on either side of you as if you were actually holding a paddle. It works alright. It's not the most accurate game Wii Sports Resort has to offer. Sometimes you'll try to paddle on one side and your Mii will paddle on the other. In terms of the actual game, it's not great. I haven't done a ton of canoeing in my life, but with my limited experience, I can say that this does not very accurately emulate the feeling of canoeing. It's hard to explain, but real-life canoeing is so much more graceful and easy to control than in this game. One single dip of your paddle tilts your canoe at like a 45-degree angle, and it just feels really strange and difficult. When it comes down to it, honestly, it just feels frustrating. Like, it feels like you should be moving so much faster than you are, but due to the asinine controls, it's like trying to ride a bike with square tires or something. I don't know, it's not as bad as power cruising, but it's not great, I can assure you of that. Next up, we got the final of the nunchuck games, cycling. You start up and it plays the most jammin' little tune. I also like how the game shows you this full overhead view of the map you're going to be cycling on. Like, what am I meant to do with this? You think I can remember any of this shit you just showed me? Anyway, the controls are simple. You swing the controllers up and down to pedal, but you don't want to pedal the whole time because you'll run out of energy. You can utilize things like downhill slopes and gusts of winds to propel your bike forward while also preserving energy. And you can also preserve your energy while also gaining speed by cycling directly behind the cyclist in front of you, which is actually a real technique in competitive cycling called drafting, so that's pretty cool. Also, this me named Vincenzo keeps popping up and giving you tips, and honestly, I'm not sure why I'm meant to trust his judgment on cycling. I don't know this guy from Sandra. Cycling is a lot of fun though. I'd put it above golf and below archery. And ladies and gentlemen, we have now reached the final category of games, air sports. You got 3 different air sports: skydiving, island flyover, and dogfight. And honestly, skydiving is so different from the other 2 that I feel the need to rank it on its own, so here we go. If you're unaware, skydiving is some midlife crisis shit that involves plunging your mortal body out of a moving plane. In Wii Sports Resort, once you jump out of the plane, the objective is to link hands with the other skydivers and then move the Wiimote so that you're all facing the camera. And you get points based on how many quality snapshots you get. Interestingly enough, if you play Wii Sports Resort with a brand new save file, you actually have to play the skydiving minigame before the title screen pops up, so that's pretty neat. Pretty insane way to introduce your game if you think about it. Welcome to Wii Sports Resort, kiddo. Time to jump out of a fucking plane. But anyway, skydiving is pretty fun. Nothing mind-blowing, but I'd play it a few times. I'd put it just below golf. And just like that, we are down to our final game, the ones where you fly a plane. Here we got 2 game modes, island flyover and dogfight. I'm pretty sure that these games were intended as a spiritual successor of sorts to Pilot Wings, a series of games Nintendo hadn't released any games in for 13 years at this point. Evidently it worked out because 2 years later in 2011, Nintendo released Pilot Wings Resort on the 3DS, which had Mii's and took place on Woohoo Island. I'm gonna start with dogfight because I don't like it as much as the other one. And I know what you're thinking. Oh, Ben, did you just say dogfight? Isn't that illegal? Can't you go to jail for that? No, you stupid asshole, you're confused. I'm not talking about actual dogfighting, I'm talking about 2 planes trying to shoot each other out of the sky. I mean, you survived the skydiving, so, you know, what's the worst that could happen? Anyway, jokes aside, dogfight is a 2-player mode where you and another person in a plane shoot each other and try to pop the balloon attached to the back of your plane. It's kind of like Mario Kart Battle Mode, and it's pretty fun. I mean, flying around in a plane, shooting at another plane, what's not to like? Island Flyover, on the other hand, is a super chill game where you fly around Woohoo Island looking for points of interest and shooting balloons with your little pea shooters. I gotta say, maybe I'm just a boring old man, but this part of the game really impressed me. Woohoo Island isn't like just a bunch of different areas. It's a full-on connected island with monuments, towns, forests, a castle, and you can fly to all the different areas where the other mini-games take place, like the Swordplay Coliseum, the bowling alley, the golf course. Tennis courts? Wait, if there are tennis courts on Woohoo Island, why isn't tennis in this game? Can you think of a more rich person on vacation sport than tennis? But yeah, it's a lot of fun, and one of the coolest things about the landmarks is that they have a little blurb that pops up and gives you a detailed description as if you're on like a guided tour of the island. It really makes Woohoo Island feel like an actual functioning place with industry, a history, and tourism and stuff. Overall, Pilot Wings for the Wii is a very fun video game. Again, maybe I'm an old man, but the island flyover minigame is just so chill and fun. I could see myself spending hours playing it. It's going above table tennis for me, ladies and gents. Well, folks, we now have the official ranking of all the sports in Wii Sports Resort, with basketball all the way at the top and power cruising way down in the depths of hell. But before we go, as always, I want to reflect how I feel about this game, deep down in my heart. Wii Sports Resort is an interesting game. I mean, sure, it was made almost exclusively so that Nintendo could push another piece of stupid hardware designed to make the Wiimote do what it was supposed to do in the first place. And it's also got a handful of bad games, but overall there is a lot to love about Wii Sports Resort. For one thing, the multitude of fun sports more than makes up for the few bad ones. Basketball, swordplay, pilot wings, table tennis, archery, cycling, golf, and skydiving are all a ton of fun, tenfold in multiplayer. And don't even get me started on the setting. A tropical resort is a fun idea for a location on its own, but Woohoo Island is so fleshed out and alive, it feels like a real place. I already said this, but the Island Flyover minigame really impressed me in this regard. Every single landmark has a fun trivia fact to it that makes Woohoo Island seem alive and full of history. It's like you're actually on a tropical resort in a foreign country. Basically, what I'm trying to say is, I really like Wii Sports Resort. I think it was a cool direction for Nintendo to go on for a sequel to Wii Sports. Well, everyone, thank you for joining me in my little slice of paradise. The only thing better than a vacation is a vacation with you folks. Now if you'll excuse me, I'm gonna catch some rays. And by catch some rays, I mean go inside, because I can already feel a sunburn coming on.